Hi and welcome. So another video from your boy Drattle44. Basically, it is about an idea that I sort of had about damage fall-off. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what that would mean and how that would balance out a lot of weapons that I think are causing some issues in the game at the moment, and how it'd be a bit easier for Respawn to do rather than trying to balance each individual weapon all the time. Some might need still balancing. I mean, that may not change, but at least it might make it a little easier for them, because they're trying their best to keep the game balanced. But of course, you know, being that there's a lot of things to do with this game, and maybe it's still a small enough team, they're not able to quite be able to keep up with all the work needed. So before we get into the video, of course, do remember to never stop moving, never stop believing, and stay Apex. Alright, let's get in today's yeah. And after doing an excellent Mirage impression there, let's get into today's content. Okay, so firstly, just covering a few things, and of course, one of the big things was in a video I posted the other day, I suppose like yesterday, technically. Basically, I did a video about the Fortify perk, about Lifeline's passive, and things like that. Now, I don't feel like those things necessarily change, but weapons-wise, there's been a big change in, of course, the meta. Certain guns have fallen out, and certain guns are still just as strong, and that really comes down to certain weapons. I do feel like, you know, a lot of guns have a very, very much longer range than they should in this game. And I think that is where a big problem lies when it comes to kind of being shot by guns at ridiculous ranges. Now, my first impression straight away are SMGs. For some reason, the alternator has a very funky and very wild recoil pattern, which makes it very hard to actually hit targets kind of like that far, unless of course you play on PC. Now, this is a big factor. You see, with Respawn, they of course have platforms on both PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4, and soon to be joining is Nintendo Switch as well. Now, PC don't suffer with recoil like we do on console, and you know, okay, that's great. That means that they can shoot an alternator maybe like 250 meters away from a sort of range that we'd be shooting with a G7 Scout with a scope or a triple take. And you go, right, so, you know, when you see PC players, realistically, you don't see them miss their shots as much. Yeah, I mean, you've got to have aim, you've got to have accuracy, and you've got to be a decent enough player to hit your shots. Moving targets are very, very hard to hit regardless. But, you know, I do find that, you know, I mean, you look at this, right? So I'm shooting there, I've got a double tap, which I accidentally forgotten. I switched to single fire on my G7, which later affects my flatline as well. I don't know why. But what happens is that you can see the ranges. Now, that is the sort of range that on PC they can shoot with SMGs, the Volts, even the alternator, and I'm like, I watch people play on PC on YouTube, and I'm thinking, my god, they can shoot one hell of a range, which is great, you know, it's good for them, but it's not good for, you know, console players. So with crossplay coming, there are a lot of concerns, kind of concerns that I have, other players have. You know, if it's done right, this game is going to be absolutely amazing, matchmaking is going to be better, and it's going to be really good. But what happens if you start coming across these really, really good PC players? Now, if I get multed by a really, you know, high-level player or a YouTuber that isn't cheating or anything like that, I'm fine with it. It happens, you know, I'm going to take that with a pinch of salt, move on to the next game. What can you do? But what is driving me crazy sometimes, and what I think that this game kind of needs, is a kind of a damage fall-off. So what damage fall-off is, there are other games with that. Probably the one I experienced the most was Destiny 2. Now, what it meant is that each gun had a range stat, depending on the archetype of gun. Now, you could still do that in this game, to be fair, because you've got still different archetype snipers, assault rifles, all those kind of things. Now, the G7 falls into assault rifle, but it has the range of a scout/sniper. So, where does that gun fall in regards to range? SMGs as well. They're shooting from halfway across the map, and they're doing a lot of damage. And yes, I could have killed this guy if I just hadn't had my gun for some reason on single fire. Great. But yeah, so I mean, obviously, you know, these guns are doing damage from a long way. You know, there's sort of like no real fall off if you get hit by one. You know, yes, the recoil is harder to control if you're on console. You've got to have good recoil control and know the guns that you're using. But basically, with Destiny 2, what they do is that each gun has a range stat along with other stats, which, okay, I mean, you wouldn't really add those stats into this game or the weapons, but what it does is it means that outside of a certain range, no matter what console or what platform you play on, it's going to do reduced damage depending on how far away you are. So if you've got an SMG and say you're shooting from, you know, 100 meters away, it's going to do less per head and per body shot. If you're shooting with, say, a G7, even with a scope, but you're in sniper range, and you're not hitting your shots, or you are, and you're, you know, hitting your headshots and your body shots, it's going to then do reduced damage. I really feel that that would be a big factor that would really kind of help this particular game. Now, don't get me wrong, there are lots of things that are very much needing to be addressed. The game is never going to be perfect, I think we can all appreciate that, and, you know, I don't expect it to be, but I really kind of want the game to be in a good place, because of course, you know, the better the game is, the more players that play, you know, being melted by energy weapons, as I've said before, is very frustrating. This would be one way to kind of tone down the Prowler and of course the Vault without actually nerfing the guns directly in regards to damage, because, you know, okay, they could nerf the damage, that is a solution, but there's the triple take, that is insane. I mean, they gave it like 4 buffs, and it's absolutely mental, but if you probably looked at that and took away, I think in that particular case, maybe the precision choke, that gun wouldn't be so bad, but the precision choke is what makes that so powerful. So there might still be some tonings that needed doing, but of course, if you take like the guns in general, you're going to actually then have a damage fall off. It means they do reduce damage, so if you're being shot by a gun from far, far away, you're not going to be hit as hard, and you've got a better chance of then ducking cover, which I think is a big factor, because, you know, I think you do need to be able to duck cover. Yeah, I mean, if you get shot, if you go out in the open and you leave yourself vulnerable to being attacked, you deserve to be shot. It's absolutely fine, but at the end of the day, it gives you a little bit more reaction time. I think with this game, you know, I do like that they brought back the skill element in regards to, you know, the Evo shields being increased. I think there are still some changes with that as well, which I'm going to leave for another video. But what do you guys think? I mean, do you think damage fall off would be a good thing for this particular game? Do you think that would solve maybe some problems? Do you think that would maybe tone down certain weapons so they're not ridiculous, and maybe, you know, it would give it just a little bit more viability to being, well, if you're too close and you get melted by a Vault, you got too close to the person, you took that chance, that's your fault. And, you know, instead of being able to shoot out these really insane, very far ranges, and I think that is one of the things as well. Now, as you can see, I'm sort of shooting Gibraltar. Is it just me, or does that guy just never die? He drives me crazy. Yes, he does die, but it takes a lot. And, you know, that is a video I did actually yesterday. It's all about sort of the Fortify perk, Lifeline's passive. I'd love to actually hear other people's opinions about that as well, so I'll link that video in the description below, so you can check that out as well if you want. But that is it for today's topic. I'd like to try and keep it a reasonable length. Hopefully it's interesting and kind of something that maybe you guys had thought about or you hadn't. Let me know your thoughts in the comment below, and if you did like the video, a like really helps me out. If you do want to subscribe, then that would be absolutely appreciated and fantastic as well. But otherwise, never stop moving, never stop believing, and stay Apex. But that is otherwise it for me today, so I shall see you in the next video. You take care. Bye now.